Hey guys, what's going on? It's AJ with Hippie Fertilizing. I'm here at MicroLife with one of my favorite guys, the professional, what would I say? He's kind of like, he's one of the main guys behind the scene on how I get my good stuff all over these lawns and really helps me out with important information. So this is Ryan with MicroLife, and today we want to go a lot more in depth with what's in a bag, what you should look for in a bag, and so you can understand your fertilizer products out there, mostly so you can understand this is why you go organic, and this is why you go organic with MicroLife.
That's right. These are the ingredients that we put into these fertilizers to make these fertilizers what they are. So.
Absolutely. So let's get this kicked off.
Okay.
What is in a bag?
So there's 16, this is not 16, there's 16 main ingredients that we put inside of each bag. We're going to kind of run through each one of them and why we choose them, what they do for your plants, and why they all together make up this nice organic fertilizer. So number one thing that's in there is alfalfa. It's on every bag, it's right at the top of the bag, even on our real bags. That contains major plant nutrients. It helps stimulate your plant's growth, and it helps feed the beneficial microbes that are in your soil's community.
So alfalfa meal, along with a few other things, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that also where you get a part of your nitrogen from?
It's true. Very true. What the nitrogen content and NPK ratio of it is, I don't know. But I know it has nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium in it that contributes to the numbers that we put on our bag. 624, 846, what have you.
Definitely. So we have alfalfa meal. What was next on that list?
So then we got fish meal.
Woo!
Fish meal contains beneficial hormones for plants. It also strengthens a plant's natural immune system, helps them fight off diseases and things like that, and it encourages beneficial microbes that suppress pathogens. So,
absolutely. I think this is super cool. A lot of people are going to look up like fish emulsion fertilizers, stuff like that. They do have one. They have a liquid one called Ocean Harvest.
that's right.
But I have scoured the internets, the interwebs, okay, the YouTubes, and you know how many products I've seen with a dry fish meal?
Probably a lot.
No, actually,
none?
Yours is the only one. Nothing that I've found, okay, I haven't seen everything, but most products that I've looked at, and I've done a lot of homework over the last 6 years on
YouTube and
fertilizer, okay, a dry fish meal is almost non-existent in any dry granular fertilizer.
Right. You see it in a lot of liquids.
Yeah.
But not in a dry fertilizer, granulated pellet, something like that.
Right. So that's definitely something where MicroLife is like way up here, and your chemical fertilizers are not ever going to be way up there, and even most of your other competing organic products, they're not going to be up there.
Right.
For reasons like that. So, what else we got?
So we've also got kelp meal. Kelp meal, seaweed, kind of the same thing. That acts as a natural root stimulator. It helps strengthen plant leaf cell walls to help in your freezing temperatures or your really hot temperatures, help brace that plant so it can stay what it needs to be. And it's also a great source of nitrogen. Great source of nitrogen. Unlike the fish meal, comes from the ocean. We're talking about all the good things that the ocean contains. And that is good, high nitrogen, lots of other beneficial elements, and we put them into this fertilizer.
Right.
So
natural root stimulator. Something that's really important too, as we go along with all these products, is bioavailability. That is something. These are plants and fish. Again, kelp is a plant.
Right. Grows in the ocean. Still a plant.
Part of me in my head is like, it grows in the ocean. I don't know. In my head, it was like not a plant for a second. But, and the reason I want to bring that up is because in my homework I've done, when you get these nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus sources straight from plants versus a chemical background,
Right.
it supports soil biology.
That's right.
SSB.
And it enhances the microbial community, which in turn enhances the soil biology. So that's
right.
what we live for.
What do we have next?
So the next thing we've got is soy meal. Soy meal is a good source of your major nutrients. It increases soil organic matter. You want to help increase your organic matter, push it more organic so it's more beneficial and natural. And it's also naturally low in salts. You don't want to add salts to your soil. That helps preserve things and kills microbiology. We're trying to enhance soil biology.
Another thing that salts do that are in basically all your chemical fertilizers is they do a process that I like to call chemical compaction.
Yes.
Okay, because it causes stuff like clay to bind together tighter.
That's right.
And all these natural products help with a process called soil flocculation. Help those soil aggregates flock together.
That's right.
And be homies instead of being shut out.
You
Like
got more
a shower
space.
curtain.
You got more space for those nutrients and that water to get around the root zone where it needs to be, rather than sitting on top and just run off and go anywhere where it doesn't need to go.
Absolutely, and even airflow, which
Sure.
is you know, we want anaerobic bacteria or aerobic. Sorry, not anaerobic.
No anaerobic.
Aerobic bacteria
Working on our
and
fitness.
fungi.
Gotta remember, working on your fitness, aerobic.
Right, absolutely, and these things need oxygen, which with a more porous soil also means more oxygen to get to your good bacteria, fungi, and roots.
That's right. Keep them alive. Next thing we got is wheat middlings. So wheat middlings are a good source of protein and your major elements, and they're also easily digested by those soil microbes we're talking about in the soil. You want to give them good food to eat so that when they push it out and create their exudates, that's that plant-ready available nutrient. Plant can take it in, slurp it in, do its thing.
So you said it's a good source of protein. I happen to know that anything that is of a protein source, right, essentially gets eaten up, and that in turn is part of the nitrogen source.
Correct. Correct.
So
not only is it a good protein source, but it's also a good nitrogen source. And you get a lot of your proteins, or a lot of your proteins create nitrogen sources. So
absolutely.
Next thing we got is rock phosphate. Rock phosphate is, it's readily available in the soil. It's a natural source of phosphorus, so it's kind of already occurring, but it's really inexpensive. It's a good way to get good phosphorus to your soil, which phosphorus helps with the fruiting and the budding and the flavoring of your plants.
So, and I know there's another product out there. A lot of you who have been looking up this sort of stuff have heard of azomite, right? Decent stuff for sure, but when you talk about rock phosphate and other things that we're going to go down the list on, again, nothing beats what's in a bag. What else do we got?
So next thing we've got is bat guano. And bat guano is a naturally occurring nitrogen source that I know its NPK ratio. It's a 10-3-1, so it's 10% nitrogen, 3% phosphorus, and 1% potassium in itself, by itself, as a natural nutrient, contributing to the main source of MicroLife. So not only does it improve soil structure, but it improves plant growth. So you've got a full NPK ratio and one minor element inside of this big bag of ingredients. Can't beat that.
Right, and it's something that supports soil biology.
That's exactly right.
Other things, chemical products out there that have these high NPK ratios and stuff, they are loaded with salt. Stay away from the salt.
Exactly
Quit
right.
giving your lawn a heart attack.
Lawn doesn't want a lot of sodium or salt. It's
right.
Not, you don't want to feed your lawn ramen noodles. That's not no nutrients and a lot of salt in there. We don't want
I like
that.
ramen noodles.
Well, that's true.
But
for
my
you.
grass don't.
Next thing we've got in there is we've got potassium sulfate. So potassium sulfate, potassium and sulfur mixed together. It's a pH neutral element. so it doesn't add to the acidity of your soil. It doesn't increase the alkalinity or anything like that. It helps, it stays pH neutral, but it doesn't burn your root systems. You can put this in your soil and get a good source of potassium and sulfur, and you're using these good quality organics that are naturally occurring in the soil and natural for the plant. So potassium sulfate, good stuff. Anything to add about potassium sulfate?
Not yet.
Okay. Next thing we're going to is iron sulfate.
Although, sorry to interrupt, is that the form in which you get things is crucial.
That's right.
So potassium sulfate in the form that it's being put in MicroLife, again, you know, it's going to be intertwined with stuff that has a low to no salt index, basically.
Right.
Because our whole goal is we want everything to be as natural as possible.
That's right.
If it's as natural as possible, then that means it's, I know I keep, you know, saying the same thing, but sports or biology.
That's right.
Right? We don't want to move away from that, because when we do, then we encourage things that we don't want.
Right.
Pests, diseases, so on and so forth.
Well, you don't want your lawn to become reliant upon you constantly adding those elements. You want your lawn to understand and learn that it can get those elements all around it without a little too much work.
Also, in this form, the potassium sulfate, it would be a much longer way for it to stay in a good, healthy form in the soil.
That's right. It doesn't just immediately get into the soil, slurp up into the plant, and get used.
So it's not doing one of two things that generally occur with chemical fertilizers. Either getting locked up, right, or leached out. It doesn't do those things like a chemical fertilizer source would.
That's exactly right. And that's the sulfur is what helps adjust it, mix with humates, which we'll get to humates and 6 more ingredients, help take that nutrient, put it in the plant ready form, and then the plant can take it in, as opposed to just, you look at a soil test, sometimes it says you've got phosphorus, and your plant just can't take it in. So you put it in plant ready form, then your plant loves it.
Right.
So
it can accept it. It wants to be homies with it.
That's exactly right. So next thing we got is K-Mag. Everybody's heard about K-Mag. It's a pretty popular product. It's a good source of potassium and magnesium. It's crucial for effective photosynthesis. So if you want your plants to utilize the sunlight to its best ability, adding potassium and magnesium enhance that. It's also essential for strong roots. If you want your roots to seek out those nutrients that they are available in the soil, this is what helps do that. And this is a piece of the ingredients in MicroLife.
So, I like to kind of find analogies for stuff if I can.
Sure.
And from what you're saying, what it makes me think of is having a solar panel, right? Well, what's the point of having a really big solar panel if you're only using half of it?
Right.
So this allows you to essentially use the whole solar panel of the leaf or the blade, what have you.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So now the next one is humates.
Woo!
Humates
One of my favorite
is
things.
the greatest thing in the world. Does a lot of things. I'll unfortunately have to narrow it down to 3. But it does well. It buffers the soil. Buffers your pH soil. We in Houston have a lot of alkaline soils. It means our pH is really high. Plants don't like pH is really high. They want it between 7 and 6. And this helps bring that down. Vice versa, if you have too acidic of soil, you need to bring it up. This helps bring it up. It helps buffer the soil up or down for your pH.
So I'm just throwing this in here. We weren't prepped for this, and a lot of these words that have to do with soil are freaking, he says them a lot better than me. But it makes me think of the term CEC. What is that? I know it's something exchange, cation exchange.
So cation exchange capacity.
Bam!
When you have a lot of locked up nutrients in the soil, those they need an anion, which is the opposite of a cation. Cation are your positives, anions are your negatives. When you've got those locked up in the soil, you need a friend nutrient to help you out. That's what humates does. Humates either gives off an electron so that it can accept it and that nutrient is available in plant ready form, or it accepts a neutron, or an anion from somebody, and then that element is then therefore put into plant ready form. It helps push and increase that cation exchange rate so that your nutrients are more readily available.
So it drastically increases your CECs.
That's exactly right.
Say that. I just want to say this for me and everybody else. What is the CEC?
So it's your cation exchange capacity.
Cation exchange capacity. Sorry, I'm really just doing this for myself, and hopefully y'all get some benefit from it too.
That's the point of this. So the last thing also is it increases stable soil carbon. The more carbon you have in your soil, carbon is the basis of life. Everything's made up of carbon. Molasses is made up of carbon. That's the next thing we'll get into. But the more you have in your soil, the more life and structure you have to that soil. Boom. And we love humates. I know you're humates. We talk about humates all the time.
Yeah, one of my favorite things for turf is called Humates Plus. Like, I don't go home without it, or leave home without it, as well as molasses. Woo! Molasses for your grass.
Speaking of molasses, molasses is next on the list. So molasses helps stimulate microbial growth, helps enhance that microbial community that's in there, helps them grow and gives them the food to eat. Second point, food for the microbes. Third is its natural sugars. It's plant energy. Molasses. So when photosynthesis, what photosynthesis does is it takes the sunlight, turns it into carbohydrates, which then turns it into sugars, which is food for your plants.
Exudates.
What you're doing is you're giving that plant that food with this. When you add molasses, you're giving the plant the ability to feed with a natural element so that it can be happy and it can grow.
So, and I want to point out a few things about molasses as well. It has iron, calcium, magnesium, manganese, potassium, B vitamins, zinc,
antioxidants. It's got everything you could think of.
Right. Really good molasses is higher in antioxidants than blueberries. Okay. But here's the other cool thing, because I read on these articles and different things, people want to argue about the effectiveness of molasses and, oh, well, it's only short term. Well, check this out. Do some homework with me, guys, about some soil biology. Most of your organic matter in soil is from dead microbes. So even if it is kind of a short-term burst, it still has a longer-term effect, because after, 30 minutes of applying molasses in your soil, your microbes will roughly double, right? So even after long-term, that molasses stimulation goes away, you still had all those microbes there that died. Sounds kind of weird, but then became food for new microbes and became more organic matter on a microscopic level for your soil, enhancing further your soil structure.
Good layers of good soil, enhancing that structure, allowing your plants to do what they need to do, allowing your soil to do what it needs to do.
Absolutely. Which all these things together work absolutely well. But yeah, anyone who's been following me a little bit knows I'm just excited about molasses.
We'll get some here for you to drink here in a minute.
I know, man. In fact, they have loads of molasses and humic acid and plant and soil, or soil and plant energy. I get it backwards all the time. Still the same stuff. Soil and plant energy.
You can say it either way.
This is
good stuff.
Definitely Lenny approved. Okay.
Okay, so we got 4 more products. So the next one we're going to talk about is cornmeal. Cornmeal is also a good source of nitrogen. It helps control fungal problems in the lawn. It also acts as a natural pre-emergent. We don't normally talk about pre-emergence because it's not something we're about, but natural pre-emergence.
Right. We're all about biodiversity. We don't want people putting down chemicals on their lawns.
Right.
Exposing themselves to unnecessary hazards for their family, their pets, the environment, what have you. So cornmeal is an excellent way to mitigate the issue, because you get, what did you say? What did we say the other day when we were looking up these things? It was like a 9001.
Right.
So it's also a natural source of
nitrogen,
amino acids, which turn into nitrogens. Natural fungicide.
Right.
Pre-emergent. in the world of lawn care, pre-emergent is way too freaking popular. So if that's the case, we want to make cornmeal a whole lot more freaking popular because we're all about that SSB, baby.
That's exactly right. And the NFB.
NFB.
Fixing bacteria.
Woo!
So we'll get into those someday soon. But cornmeal is also what's inside of MicroGrow. AJ just did a video on what's in MicroGrow, why he uses it. He's going to start using a lot more, he says.
Here, let me see some of that. Hold on, man. I need some good nutrients, yo. He won't do it yet, but that's okay.
Gotta prepare yourself. Boom. That's where Lenny comes in handy. Wash him down with.
Now, I'm telling you.
May not taste the greatest, but it's full of the good stuff.
It's actually not even terrible either. I've had healthy stuff. There's that stuff tastes better than apple cider vinegar. Okay.
That's true.
It's way better than a lot of things, but I just did it because I'm weird. But also, it's safe. It's healthy. It feeds soil biology. I'm gonna assume it's gonna feed my biology too. I've done it before and I'm still here, so.
Well, we've got 80% common DNA with the soil, same as our humans. So putting that there does its thing. Okay, next thing we got is cottonseed meal. Cottonseed meal contains your major and your minor elements, your micros and your macros. It also increases microbial diversity. So not only do we want to enhance the soil biology of our soil, but we want a good diverse amount of them. We don't just want a whole bunch of bacteria and no fungi. We don't want just fungi and no bacteria. So enhancing that community, I call them little police officers, little doctors, little farmers in the soil that kind of help move all these things around and help enhance and create those little caveats for roots and water and nutrients. So
absolutely.
Another element, one of my probably favorite elements that's in most all MicroLife is yucca. We use yucca as a wetting agent. Helps open up, if you've got tight compacted concrete soils and you want to open them up, yucca helps dive down in there to get everything down to where it needs to go into the root zone.
So it's like a natural penetration enhancement kind of product.
Exactly.
To penetrate the soil deeper.
Right. Helps get nutrients to the root zone as opposed to just sit on top and not do their job correctly. Yucca enhances a plant's community to where they can fight off bad pathogens, bad insects. Not only that, it enhances their immune system so that they can fight off these pathogens and stay strong and healthy plant. So,
yeah. In some products out there, what they use for a soil penetration is basically a soap. Okay?
Soap, yes. Right.
And so that's where MicroLife and their products is superior to others because they're not adding soap to get deeper into the soil. They're using a yucca extract.
That's right.
Find that in other products, homies.
And then probably the last thing that I would say, which is the most stout of the entirety of our MicroLife products, is the inoculant package that we put in there.
What do we got here? This is one of them.
Right. MicroGrow Supreme, which that's the inoculant that's inside of 624, Ultimate, Humates Plus, Citrus, Hybrid, and Acidifier. That is what we call your growth first and your protection second. Contains more of your bacteria and your fungi than the other inoculant.
I do.
Right. And again, always encourage people to go look this stuff up. What is it you got here? 76 different species of microbes. Okay? I've looked up a lot of this stuff, and the most I found on your average product is really just one in most products. And the better ones, you get like 4 to 7.
Right.
And then usually they're just like fungi or one kind of species.
One piece, yeah.
In MicroLife, you have 76 different species. You got bacteria, fungi, other things. Again, I can't say all these fancy names. And what's the other biological inoculant that you have in?
So then our other one is MicroGrow CM. That is the inoculant that's in Brown Patch and in MicroGrow Granular. So that's what we call our anti-disease inoculant, if you will.
An antifungal.
All biological fungicide. Can I describe the way a fungicide works for a second?
Yeah.
So a fungicide is a kill-all. It depletes everything in the community, and it uses a little copper. That just kind of helps it look like there's a nutrient in there. What we do is we inoculate, we kill a bad fungus by inoculating with a bunch of beneficial bacteria. We put in an army to deplete this bad area, and then that enhances the community and everything comes around, and we're all supporting soil biology. That's what we're doing.
So essentially, you're helping to fight the bad guys with the good guys.
Exactly.
Right? Instead of a...
Deplete, kill all, everybody fend for themselves, essentially.
So the term for this, one of the words I know, it's not very technical, but it's non-selective. Right. This stuff is very selective because it's going to still support your beneficials. It's not going to impact your beneficials, but it's going to knock out the stuff that's going to cause you, that's going to fight your pathogens, essentially.
Right. That's why, so the other one for the first supreme inoculant was growth first, protection second. We refer to this one as our protection first, growth second.
Super freaking protection. Something we'll talk about more later is the rhizosphere.
It's where all these guys congregate.
These biological inoculants that we have here, this lovely little powdered stuff, I don't know how well y'all can see that. It's in all the granular MicroLife products. You can't find that in such a rich diversity in other products.
I mean, you can get them separately. A lot of fertilizers do it separately. They have all these dry products that we just talked about, and then they have a separate inoculant. Well, what we're doing is we're putting them together. We've got the food and the labor force that your lawn needs in order to support soil biology.
Absolutely. Again, you guys, Ryan, my main man, up here at MicroLife Fertilizer. Just a little tiny, like, think about the words. MicroLife.
Right.
To feed people like us and trees and grass are MacroLife.
I like that.
Okay, and as one of our guys Conrad, if you happen to see this, man, he's the one who said MicroLife or no life.
That's right.
What?
That's very true.
So, you know, goofy things. SSB, support soil biology. NFB, nitrogen fixing bacteria.
That's right. We'll dive more into that next time.
MicroLife or no life. So, thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, no problem.
This is super informative, very helpful, and yeah, let's do this again, man.
We will. I will just say, if people have more questions, you obviously can go to our website, microlifefertilizer.com. We put all this on there. Our catalog's on there. All of our products, more in depth, are on there. If you don't believe two guys in an office, check us out on the web. So.
Right. Or check out my other videos.
Right.
I've been using MicroLife since, how would I want to word it, the inception of Hippie Fertilizing.
3 or 4 years ago?
Yeah. Before Hippie Fertilizing, when I had AJ's tree care, and right at the end of AJ's lawn care. And my customers and their results speak for themselves.
That's right.
You know, and I'd have to attribute a lot of my soil and lawn success with their awesome products.
That's right. I'll take that.
So,
do you want to say anything about Jason or anything like that? Anybody like that? Can't get this from us.
So yeah, if you're seeing this and you get, you're inspired to look into it more, you want to try the stuff out, just search MicroLife Fertilizer on Amazon and check out the vendor Friendswood Mercantile, okay? Because that gentleman works with us, and we all work together to provide the very best for our soils, for our community, and for our environment.
That's exactly right.
So, y'all have a groovy day. Remember, nobody knows grass like a hippie. Check you later.